All right. Well, we'll jump into this now, just in respect of time for everybody. If you start the Marco, I do want to turn this as the title into a bit more of a mastermind. Want to give you guys a few things just looking at in your practice, whether it's for you, if you're newer in practice, if you got associates, the things to really pay attention to and some of the key areas. And then I want to get into really talking and sharing about if you're struggling in certain areas, then let's talk about that. So this becomes a valuable use of your time. If you're excelling in areas, I'd also love for you to share because we can all get better from that. I've also really found just when we look in the development of a leader, the ability to share and help others is what's so even if you're not getting much from the call, but you're sharing, it develops us as leaders, which allows us to get better, help more patients, be better in our practices, help more doctors, et cetera. So the focus of the call is on internal referrals. Now, you want to have a strong external game, but really the stability of your practice is going to come from all of your internal referrals. So a number I always like to look at. So like if like our goal in our office is 15 new patients per week, right? With the time I have involved, like we're just trying to keep it around, 450, 500. Like that's all we want to do right now until my associate commit more hours. But so we're looking at, 15, we cap out at 18 new patients, but if it's 15 new, we would like 7 or 8 of those. So 50% we want to be internal, right? So you want to be looking at, and if it drops, because I can tell you it has in times, it's that we start to become passive and we're not doing the things in the office and typically training's fallen off and things like that. So it's a great measurement to the stability of your office. It's also a great measurement as to likely the intention inside the office, whether it's from you as the leading doc or from team associates, et cetera, like that. So looking at that. So the number one thing, and this kind of goes all over, we will spend some time on day 4, 5, 6, but the number one thing for referrals is you have to be excellent. And this comes down to many different levels because no one's going to refer to something that they don't think that wasn't a good experience for them. They're not going to tell their friends or family to come to that. So that's excellence in the appearance of your office. That's going to be excellence in the training of your team. It's going to be the excellence in the hygiene of you and your team members, in your adjusting ability, the excellence in the flow of your office. So when you're thinking about those, like a great thing to do that we always do with team when it usually comes to day one as part of the training is, we just walk the office. Like what does this thing look like if there's a first impression, right? What is like, I might be like, oh man, there's stains on the carpet. There's this, there's that. Well, it's probably time to take care of that, right? If you train on it every 6, 8 weeks, might be time to take care of those things. Also be looking at your adjusting. So we've talked a lot about in spinal correction stuff, like is your adjusting great? Would people travel to come and see you because of the adjustment? And if not, it's fine, right? But what are you doing to practice to get better at that, right? It could be something as simple. Maybe it's not doing the next level of corrective adjustments. Maybe it's just air adjusting so you're better at what you currently do. You're faster, you're speedier, it's crisper. There's more excitement in the adjustment, right? I remember this is going back years ago, and I'm not even sure if it was when we were at Max Living, but I remember training that Dr. Justine was doing, talking about, the excitement after you deliver an adjustment. And I remember I was taking care of her dad and stepmom at the time, and she got feedback from them after. She goes, man, like it's just after doing that C1, it's just, but again, it's real. I just get excited by a good adjustment, right? So it's thinking about those type of things. I'd also really look at your flow. Like, what does your flow look like? Are people coming in and they're sitting there waiting to get onto the adjusting table for 20 minutes? Or is it, hey, they come in, they're wobbling, there's a good video, so if they do have to wait 5 minutes or whatever, it's not a big deal. They got rehab to do, so there's things to keep them busy. But what does that flow look like? And if the flow is bad, what's the issue? Do the adjustments take too long? Is your team not getting people loaded properly? Is there not a proper loading strategy? Are you getting into side conversations that delay everything? Is your new patient exam, instead of being 15 minutes, 45 minutes, so all of a sudden you come back out like your hair's on fire? Like, look at these pieces. it's it's the awareness to understand where some of the gaps are, because as odd as it sounds, these drive referrals. If people are just in and happy, they are going to tell others. In some of the processes then, so just again, it's mainly about day 4, 5, 6, but some of the processes to look at. So like we've trained on this before and a few calls ago, but in your day one, like that tour that we should all be doing to people understand the office, like, do we talk about the things that set us apart, that make us unique, as to why people would make the drive to come to you versus going to the chiropractor next door or the mom and pop chiropractic down the street? You know, the fact that we work in the 5 essentials, the fact that we do correction, that we have some spinal rehab pre and post adjustment, you know, if you have those in your office, that you're part of a network of doctors. It's not just you individuals. Like, this is a network where we're trying to make a change. People want to be part of something bigger. Another piece I was just like on daily visits, like, this is something I got from Charlie Majors all the time, and it was actually, it changed a lot for us in that moment. He just asked the question, like, we were working on referrals back in the days, like, does your office scream that you're the answer? And I would tell you at that time, there's no way it did. And I'd say as Canadians, we're not very good at this. If you've been in practice more than a couple of years, I'm also going to tell you, you become numb to the successes unless you're being intentional about it. It's like, oh yeah, my back pain's better. Oh, hey, my energy's better. Oh, hey, I'm playing golf again. You're like, oh, of course, because you see it a lot. But you got to make sure. So, like, a big thing we do is we do it like testimony of the week all the time. We pick a day where that's the only thing we talk about is the testimony of the week. And then otherwise it's conversation if we don't have something good to talk to the person about. But you need to be screaming you're the answer. If you're not, people don't understand, or they think that you're just good for whatever they came in with. I'd be looking at your daily adjustments. So your daily adjustments, you really want to look through this is the proper flow of an adjustment would be, you know, a hello, a basic welcome, the adjustment, and there should be a talking point. Depending on volume, it's not likely everybody. Like, I can tell you my talking point is probably for one person every 15 minutes. A lot of people get the, you know, great to see you today, Stephen. And then it's the adjustment, great adjustment, I'll see you Wednesday. Just it's a volume piece. But if you have time, like if you only have 3 every 15 minutes, 2 of those people should be getting this talking point at the end. You For me, just because I'm usually 8 or 9 across, it's I make sure one person every 15 minutes is getting this. It's just a piece you need. And that talking point should be based on the reason they will stay under care. This is a big piece we do, and I do a patient care meeting because I'm not the only doc in my office. So myself, my associate, and my tech, we have a patient care meeting. It's everyone who's had a re-exam that week. The things we talk about is where they're in the Super Bowl, what's going to keep them coming, and then what our action step is for them. That what's going to keep them coming, that should be top line in your adjusting system, and this is what your talking points on. So what I mean by that, so if someone's like, you know, I want to be the fun grandparent, right? That goes beyond when the back pain goes away. I want to be able to golf. I want to have the energy to be a good parent with my kids. I don't want to be disabled like I saw with my, you know, a family member. I want to be healthy so I can take care of my family. I'm in the trades. I don't want to be disabled like I see all these guys when they're 50, right? There's you need to understand what's going to keep them coming past their current symptom. And then there needs to be a talking point with them based on, you know, great adjustment today. That's what's going to, you know, improve your golf swing and keep you golfing. This is what's going to have you on the floor playing with your grandkids, right? There has to be a talking point that's leading towards this. Happy patients, successful patients refer other people. When it comes down to DR, you really like, or sorry, not, I want to not talk about DR. I want to talk about as the doctor in the office. You really want to look at also in any re-exams, like a comparative exam or progress exam should be about their successes, should be about lifetime, and it should be about referrals. And it's about them being the hero, right? It's not like, hey, who can you send to me? It's like, hey, you were here. You're now here. Do you know people have no idea that they can get rid of that? right? We want to go through those processes to make sure people understand, I guess, their benefits, why they stick around, and that makes them want to refer others. Before we get into day, I guess, 3, 4, 5, 6, I know I just threw a lot at you in like 10 minutes. Questions on that, feedback on that, areas you think you're strong on, areas think you need to improve on.
Okay, to avoid the crickets here, to avoid the crickets. So here's quick little story. So this is really kind of cool. Uh, if any of you have heard of Rob Schiffman, so Rob was one of the very first coaches that I had when I joined ML. And Rob got on the phone once, and Rob was the type of guy, he was kind of an intimidating guy because he was so intense and so focused. But Rob had the busiest practice in the history of chiropractic, 3,000 people a week. So this is kind of cool. So obviously, you can probably learn something from this guy. So I asked him one day, I said, because we were in the process of hiring staff, I said, what's your criteria for hiring staff? He goes, they need to refer. So that's it. He goes, if I can teach them the principle of chiropractic and I can share my vision with them, he goes, they won't help but refer. He goes, that's a sign to me that they understand the vision of chiropractic is that they refer. They buy into chiropractic. They understand what it's all about. Because if they don't understand what it's all about, there's an unwillingness to refer. So that to me is a sign. So I adopted that and I said, well, every single staff member, we have to treat like they're our most important salesperson, if you will. They have to really understand the principle. So all of our meetings was like a doctor's report to staff. It was constantly pouring into them to give them tools to be that number one refer. Every associate we had, and this was my philosophy with the associates, is that I wanted to empower them enough that they had the confidence to go out and build their own practice. So it wasn't a case of I wanted them to be an employee in our office, for the rest of their life. I wanted to empower them so that they could have the tools to build their own practice. And those associates became a great source of referrals for our office. And every single associate that we had over those years now has their own practice, which I think is wonderful. It's fantastic. So, but that's the whole thing is if we're not pouring into our people around us, then our referral network is dead. So that really hit me hard back then.
Well, even a big thing I would say in training, even when you're doing whatever, for us it's Wednesday, whatever your weekly training is with team, you can become mechanistic and just get into the training procedure. Or when we got really good at this, it's like the first, 3 to 5 minutes, it's about the reason we do day 1 or day 2 or re-exams. Like that piece, if your team's understanding the principle of the procedure, then it's not just this mechanistic piece. And it gets back to what Colin's talking about. So you need to be pouring into them, but also make sure it's showing up in every piece. Otherwise, it can become very humdrum mechanical and things like that as well.
Who else? Anybody else gets really good referrals in your office?
Can I just talk about how I need to do much better at internal referrals? I'm like, what will happen even right now? I've had new staff turnover, a few other things going on. So I'll get like the save a life sheets and I'm behind with those calls. It's just not good. So I need to be more committed to doing the actual families in, following up with it, making it happen. I need to be a lot better with carrying forward with all the action steps.
So let me ask that's the question. So you're getting referrals,
Yeah.
and what's your agreement with the patients as to what's going to happen with those?
Well, I'll typically say to them, like, if Save a Life is filled out, I'll say I'm going to be in touch with them over the next few days because I would like to get them into our office as soon as possible. But again, like the last 2, 3 weeks, my follow through it hasn't been good. But in the past, like I would call them the same day because I want that person in versus the $37 patient on, like, it's just so much more work for that other patient.
Yeah.
So that's what I
How,
like to.
how's you have stable team right now?
Well, I've had new team since the past 2.5, 3 weeks.
Okay. The
Yeah.
only reason I asked the question is because you can reduce your calls probably by about 30% if you set up that lifesaver sheet well. So now I'll give you some tips on that, and then we can talk about, and Colin can help as well, as to the current issue you have right now. But if you're getting referrals today, tomorrow, Monday, whatever, you want to make sure when you're talking about it, so when they're writing those people down,
Hmm.
it would be so valuable to take an extra 30 to 45 seconds per name, because some of them are just going to call you. You don't have to call them. And so a
Okay.
key to this, if I'm having a discussion with you, Amber, and you're like, you know what? You write down, I'm like, who's this person, Steven? Oh, Steven's my friend.
Mhm.
What's going on with Steven? He's got back pain, hard time playing with his kids and stuff like that. And then the simple question is, why do you think it's so important that Steven gets checked?
Okay.
It becomes like that why question all of a sudden turns the tables. You're not chasing them. Their friend's going to be encouraging them. Right. And now you can leave it, be like, you know what? So if you have the why as to why you'd be referring Steven, for instance, um, for that person, now it's like, hey, you know what? Obviously you understand the importance of them getting checked. You know things that Steven doesn't know. And then you create an action plan. Um, do you want us to call Steven? Do you want to talk to Steven, have him call us? How do you want to work this? And then you just have a follow-up on the table. And I can tell you, like in our experience, 30% of those people are going to call, or their friend's going to set up the appointment without us having to call. So it takes more time in the moment,
Yeah.
right? And then the others, like the solution to the structure you have right now, is it has to be in somebody's war plan. So for me, it's a team member, but it's in somebody's war plan as to when these calls happen.
Okay.
Right? If there's not a time, there's just too much busyness, or there's always an emergency, right? And you end up over here doing this thing, that thing, etc. There's just got to be a time. And if a team member's trained well, now if they've only been with you 2-3 weeks, that's probably not the person to call. It needs to be you. But if a team member's trained well, it can be a team member that makes the call. It's always more powerful coming from the doctor, depends on volume. But you just got to look at, okay, so in my schedule, where can I set aside? And it can be something as simple as 15 minutes a day. I'm doing 2 to 3 phone calls a day. That's it. Right? That doesn't have to be like a big time, like I said, 30, 40 minutes, whatever. Just like, okay, so 15 minutes and I'll have one time a day or a couple times a day. We all burn that time in doing mindless stuff anyway.
Hey, have you ever gone and seen a great movie, and you walk out of a great movie and you go, that was such an unbelievable movie, and everybody that you talk to in the next few days that says, hey, have you seen this movie? Like for me, it was Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise's sequel to Top Gun. That was an unbelievable movie. I just thought that was so well done, and everybody that talked to me, oh, and I saw it right at the beginning. Was that a good? I was absolutely, you got to go see it. But think of it the other way. If you go and see a terrible movie, you don't want to tell anybody, because what you do is you put your reputation, your trust on the line, right? And you're actually, when you refer somebody, when somebody refers somebody to you, they put their trust on the line, for you, for that referral. So for you to not have a system in place to at least acknowledge that referral and then go and do the next step and contact that referral, that is kind of, it's almost like a disrespect to the person that referred that person. So, and I would say to you, so easy way to do it, and this is something we used to do in our office, is we would have a post-shift huddle. And this would be something that would come up in the post-shift huddle. 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the shift, what happened during the day, who needs to be called? That's when the call list would be made up. Day 1 calls, day 2 calls, whatever it is, referral calls, and they would get put on a list and it would get emailed to me. And on my way home, I would just click on those phone links and I would make those calls. It was very, very easy to do. But the thing is, we had the system in place to acknowledge that, so nothing got missed. And that was just done every day. So that's a simple way to do it, Amr. If you want to talk about, how do I address these and things are falling through the cracks, just have a 5 or 10 minute post shift huddle and go over all the details that happened during that shift, tie up those bows and loose ends, dot the I's, cross the T's, and get everything done. So you can go into the next shift fresh and nothing's been missed. And guess what happens? Your practice automatically starts to grow.
And
Well,
then
and
I
a
have,
huge thing oh, go ahead, Amar.
sorry, I have another question. So, like, for example, this morning I had somebody and they didn't fill out the lifesaver sheet. So I said, take it home with you, bring it in next time, think of all the people, you know, whatever. So then I know like that's what our, like what we've been taught is by PE, that's when you want to talk to them again about referrals, right? So that's when I should wait and just bring it up again. Right? Is there anybody else that you can think of? Like, you know, what is the best time to bring it up again?
So
Absolutely. Progress exam is a good time to do it for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it depends on how that conversation goes. So as much as I'm a systems person, there is different paths in the system depending on that conversation, right? Like if I'm having a conversation with someone and it starts to feel weird, like we all know that feeling, like the person's like, like they're just like I'm just here for me right now. You get that sense of them. If you're if you've done a good job, I also feel more times people be like, there is, but I want to see how it works for me first. I want my husband to get checked, but he wants to see how I do first. Like those type, like they'll be more free if you've done a good job in your conversion process through day 4 or 5. And we'll talk a bit about that here in a sec too. But based on that, if someone seems standoffish, then I am not bringing it back up because it needs to be about them.
Okay.
If someone's like, I do, but my head's just so full, like you told me all these things right now, then I might follow up. Hey, I know you were going home with that sheet, and it's a soft one. Is there anyone that you wanted that you wanted to make sure that you got help for right away? Just ask, right? If you know that that's a person who just seems full, but they seem like they do want to help somebody. Otherwise, you leave it. And that conversation then in your progress exam is not, hey, have you thought of anybody yet? It's
Yeah.
more about, hey, look, you're talking about their successes. It's always got to like if I'm the patient, it's got to be about me first.
Mhm.
You'd be like, hey, Brian, like your range of motions changed like this. I see symptomatically this has happened. Your x-ray shows this. Isn't that amazing? Why do you think that is? It's a principle-based conversation. Well, I've been doing the adjustments. So that home care you told me about, blah, 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 blah. Exactly. And now it can become, how many other people do you know who had back pain like you were suffering with at the beginning, that would love to not have back pain anymore? Because you get to celebrate them. And now that's how you ask for a referral. You ask for a referral based on their successes.
And referrals work great at the highest emotional state. And that's when testimonials work great. So if somebody comes in and they've had a great revelation, you know, they've had the first night of good sleep because their back pain's gone, whatever, that's the time to recognize that and say, hey, let's get a testimonial. Have the camera set up in the other room, go and ask them a couple questions like, what's your experience been? Hey, who's in your mind right now that needs to have the same experience you did? Right? It's not who, you know, it's not who do you know? Because as soon as it can, you know, Brian, you nailed it too. When you start going, well, who do you know that needs to come in? All of a sudden, you're a car salesman, right? And that doesn't go over very well. But if you can catch somebody at their highest emotional state and say, you know, during that doctor's report, who was passing through your mind when we were talking about innate intelligence in the body, removing subluxation? We were talking about the story of Jason who got his curve back and his life was returned. He got off his medications. Who were you thinking about during that time? That's the time to say, okay, how do we get that person in here? Because you get them at their emotional peak, and that's when they can start making good decisions and start opening up to you.
Yeah. And this is science. Everyone makes decision based on emotion. They will stick to the decision based on logic. So if someone's not trying to move towards something or away for something, they're not gonna make a decision, right? They've done studies where people have like the emotional part of their brain has been damaged. They can't decide what clothes to put on in the morning. They cannot make decisions. So and that's why like at DR, it's always an emotional close, right? That's how they can make a decision. It now needs to be backed up with logic on day 4 so they understand why they're doing it and why they're sticking around for a long time, right? But people do not make decisions on logic. They make decisions based on emotion. They stick to them based on logic. So always, if it doesn't happen in your day 4 through 6 process, where you're getting the referral, that follow-up can be at the re-exam or the first time they tell you that something's gone well. But it's got to be about them first, that then transitions into like, you've done so great, this is awesome, celebrate them. Who else do you know who's dealing with health problems or dealing with your symptom or would love to have a result like you did, right? Because all of a sudden they're at this high state. They're like, oh, right? I know you're on your way to work right now. Who else do you work with that deals with this?
This is good conversation, you guys. And here's the other thing too. So staff meetings, prepare for your staff meetings and talk to your team in a way that gets them emotional. Bring stories, bring testimonials, bring articles where, you know, people's lives are being destroyed by the medical system or medications or prescriptions or whatever it is. And that gets them emotional. And here's the biggest thing is when you have a team that's emotionally invested to what they do to save lives, and all of a sudden, then you don't have to talk as much in the room. It frees up your time because that patient stays with you for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, whatever it is, gets adjusted. And then they go out and they spend 10 minutes with your team at the desk before or after their adjustment, and they get poured into by these emotional team members who love chiropractic and want to serve and want to see their lives change. And all of a sudden, all these referrals start happening and you have no clue what's happening because you've created that culture in your office. And that always comes from preparation. So it boils right down to as much as you prepare to train and lead your team to be the captain of your ship, everything else falls into place behind it.
Other questions just on internal referrals, basic process, stuff like that. We talked about where things could, like if you're struggling with like table talk, for instance, like that's a gigantic one.
Hey,
Either by a show of hands, or I would say either by a show of hands before I move on to something else, either by a show of hands or put in the text. How many people get at least half of their new patients from internal referrals? So this is where we want to work then. So like for Steven, Wilson, Phil, Umar, these are things. So then the things we've talked about so far, where do you feel the biggest area you need to get better at?
So, and I want to hear from Shaylin actually, because Shaylin just responded in the chat that she does get at least half
At
of
least
her
half.
from internal referrals. So, Shaylin, what is it? What culture? I mean, you've been practicing for a long time. What culture would you say has created those referrals for you?
I'm trying to get my, oh, there we go. We just ask for referrals. One is I expect every patient comes in, my expectation is they stay, pay and refer. I approach every new patient that we're going to be, we're going to be best friends for their lifetime. That and they don't always, not by any means, but that's my intention going into the relationship with a new patient is that it's going to be a long-term relationship. They're going to bring their family, they're going to send their friends. And then we just have a system that we ask. So we have postcards and we ask 3 people a day for referrals, and we just give them the card, and it's for a complimentary scan, the insight scan. And then in January, we put a flag on every patient's file, and every single patient in the office gets asked for a referral with the cards. So yeah, I think a big part of it is the mindset, and then just being comfortable asking patients, because I know with the new associates, it's awkward for them to say, hey, do you want to send somebody? So just role playing and practicing through what that language is. And I just keep it super simple. And I think it's a volumes game too, that we hand out, thousands of cards to get, a handful of new patients, but those new patients all of a sudden refer a whole bunch of other new patients as well.
Hey, can you share that card in the group chat?
Yeah, I can take a picture of it and share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's several. We all have different pictures, so I can send one of each. It all says the same thing on the back, just it's a $30 complimentary spinal assessment. So when they come in, they don't see me, and I make that clear. They see the new patient advocate. And she'll do the scan for them. With the newer doctors, they do their own scans. And then if they do become a new patient, then the $30 is just taken off their new patient fee. So yeah, and my new patient advocate, she has a very, very high, what's it called? Turnover, what's it called?
Conversion rate?
Conversion, thank you. Conversion, she has a high conversion that I'd say 99% of people that come in for the scan end up becoming new patients. So, but again, it's just asking, like just asking, and people are more than happy to. Like some people are like, oh, can I have several of those? And sure. And then the other one too is taking advantage of conversations and opportunities. So, you know, a mom comes in, she's like, oh my God, I've been up all night. My baby has an ear infection or is teething. And I'll just say, next time you're in, bring the baby in and we'll check her too. And, you know, providing I've done some education on that, or if it's a newer patient, then I'll just explain why we want to have the child checked. But again, it's just being comfortable with those conversations. And the other thing that I find is great for internal referrals, is referring other people to other chiropractors out of town. So for example, if a patient comes in and says, oh, my sister really needs a chiropractor, and I'll say, where does she live? Obviously, if she's in Brantford, I'll say, great, bring her in. Here's a card for her. But if not, I will find somebody and refer her to somebody. And that, for whatever reason, the woohoo stuff out there, the energetic attraction, the act of referring somebody to another chiropractor creates that energy of attraction to our office too. And I know that sounds really like airy-fairy, but it is true. The more, and again, I think part of it is just that conversation, that energy of doing what's in the best interest of the patient, regardless if it's in my best interest or my financial gain or my office. It's referring that patient because it's the right thing to do. And that act of referring creates an energy of attraction.
So you bring up a huge point, and so Shaylin just kind of nailed this and said how our associates feel a little awkward about asking for referrals. And so if you have that feeling at all, like anybody on the line here, if that feeling crosses your mind or you feel a little awkward asking the person for referrals, it truly just means that at your core, you don't truly believe in what you're doing. So let's just say hypothetically, you know, you're Dr. Banting or Dr. Best, and you are the discoverer of insulin. So you have just discovered the cure for type 1 diabetes. I mean, I'm just talking hypothetically here. You'd want to tell the world about it. Like you'd want every single person to know. So the more committed you are to the correction of subluxation, the more committed you are to chiropractic is the answer for the removal of interference so we can express our full God-given potential. If you own that to your core, you want everybody to know about it. Like there's nobody on the face of this earth that couldn't benefit from having their spine examined and adjusted. Like there's nobody. So it only means that you're not fully committed to the principle. And so get more committed to the principle. And then it's easy to ask for referrals because you don't care you don't care what people think about you. You don't care what the rejection, what the answer is. And you're going to have more people buy into it as a result of that.
That's fine. That's the exact same thing I was going to go off on too. So I was going to ask Dr. Shaylin, like, do you feel nervous? And clearly you don't, where your associates might. This is a big thing for a team as well. And it's like, if you feel that pit in your stomach, like you're into that sale piece, right? You're into that sale piece, you're into convincing. And if you're there, you need to understand what it's what you're offering the person. If you're struggling with it, if you feel nervous going into it, if you feel like you're selling, as weird as it sounds, you're making it about you. You're making it about you versus if this person gets the message, gets this help, how's this going to change them? Or if I'm asking Shaylin for a referral, how amazing Shaylin gonna feel when her best friend all of a sudden is feeling way better and thanking her for sending her in, right?
Yeah.
And a way you can build up around that is, you know, read up on chiropractic, read green books, read your own testimonies. Need to fill yourself up so then you can pour into the people in front of you. And it's not that you don't care if they refer or not. But whether they do or they don't, it's not a reflection on you. You're putting it out there and they can do with that information what they want. But if you're holding back the truth.
Most people thank me for giving them the card. So I mean, I don't ask for names. I don't do that. It's very low key, but I just say, hey, I have this for you today to pass on to somebody for a complimentary scan. And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like as if I've given them, which it is a gift, but I've given them this big gift. Rarely are people like, what the heck's that about? Like most people, probably 90% of people thank me for it and say, oh, my coworker really needs a chiropractor. I'll definitely pass this along. Thank you. So again, it's just, and maybe that's my energy or my intention that I am giving them a gift and they are receiving a gift. So yeah, I know it's different than how other people do it, but that's what we do.
But your intention behind it and your feeling behind it is everything as to why it's successful.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was just gonna, I have a similar idea with cards that I do because we do 50% referrals. But so I have the spring into health, fall cards, summer cards, and Christmas cards. So it's 4 set times of the year and they're all different. And I typically do 500 cards to give out 4 times a year.
Is it to everybody, Justine, or is it targeted to certain people?
It is everybody, but obviously, like you said, when someone's having a down day, if they just, whatever, their dog just died, I'm not handing them a card, right? So, you're careful that it's strategic for those ones that are having a great day, and it's repetitive, of course, but it's again from your heart, just like Shaylin. It's part of the 12-month marketing calendar. So that there's always, a monthly internal event along with these cards. We also do the basket, spring basket, fall basket, Christmas basket. So 3 baskets a year that are all creating, internal referrals. And we do the family health pass after the doctor's report. Everybody gets 2. And then we do family health passes are in the room from when you do a progress exam. If the progress exam goes well, then they get a family health pass.
One thing there, and this goes back to Amar's first piece about like I'm struggling with getting, actually doing these calls and stuff like that. One thing, just from what Dr. Shaylin and Justine shared, as you can tell, it's a system, right? They're not waiting for it to be like, oh, now it's top of mind. Oh, I should do this. It's like, this is like Justine's got it. It's part of the marketing calendar. Shaylin's like, I do it these certain times, right? It's this system that I flow through, and this is how things don't get forgotten, and it becomes part of who you are and what you do and what your office stands for.
I find a lot of the newer associates will do it when their new patients are down. So I mean the goal is that it's done that's right, like the up and down, like where the other times we do it, we give every new patient a good health check, and then on every re-exam they get one as well. But again, it's that consistency over and over again. So even if new patient volume is really, really high, you still don't take your foot off the gas. You keep doing what you're doing to keep that momentum and that growth, versus all of a sudden practice is down. And then you say, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then you start handing out cards and asking for referrals, because that creates that energy or intention of desperation. So it's a matter of asking for referrals and inspiring people from a state of inspiration, not asking for referrals out of desperation, because that energy translates to patients and they see it and they feel it, and it's not as successful.
And then I would say you guys, take it a step further in the fact that when somebody does refer somebody to you and you know who referred that new patient in, acknowledge it. Like, don't be afraid to send them a thank you, or don't be afraid to give them a gift, or, maybe it's a gift certificate for a product or something, but at least an acknowledgement. I've seen offices where we'd have a whiteboard up and they say, thank you for your referrals. And they'd write down names. So people come in, they see their name on the board, or welcome our new patients referred by so-and-so. And at least that acknowledgement is there to reward the good behavior. And that in itself is reassuring. And then all of a sudden you have more people saying, okay, I got a whole bunch more people I could refer in.
So that's one thing I didn't even think about it. So thank you for triggering it in my brain. Again, these systems we have in place that we don't even think about because they're rote. So like if you use Atlas, like it will give you a pop-up, a reminder, so the team can thank the person, the doctor can thank the person, the adjusting area for the referral. We've also gotten a lot better recently of thanking the person even for an attempted referral. So if it's like, and I'm just picking because you guys are side by side on my screen, Shaylin and Steven, if it's like, hey, Shaylin, I know you're really trying to help your friend Steve. It just wasn't the right time for him. But you know what? That's a big thing of you. That's an important thing of you thinking of others. You know, thanks for trying. Let us know how we can help in the future, right? Even the attempt, right? Because if not, if someone attempts 1 or 2 times and doesn't go well, it's like they get shy. So it's even rewarding them for thinking of other people is a big one. The other one we're big on is, again, Atlas allows us to do that. So it'll show like who people have referred. It kind of gives like a tree of referrals. So as soon as someone gives a testimony, we look at that. Okay, so who, like who's it that sent them? And we're going to make sure. So if it's like, if Colin sent Steven in and Steven's got a testimony, we're going to be like, hey, next time I see Colin, there's a pit stop. Hey, Colin, have you talked to Steven as to how well he's doing since starting care here? Because it's always got to go back, like the patient's the hero, right? The patient's the hero. So if Colin referred Steven, he's the hero for doing that, right? So it's keeping that circle going. And like Colin was talking about at the beginning, it's that energy, it's that emotion, it's the excitement behind it. Because like how many times does the average person in your office get to be part of something bigger than them or changing someone else's life or experience? They don't get much access to that, but they do get access to that in your office.
Hey, so here, one of our things that we used to love doing in our office was our community dinners, and that was a real driver for our practice. And again, going into it with the mentality of just thanking our community. It wasn't a new patient magnet. It was just to thank our community. And so we actually inspired our staff to say, okay, let's have a system where we had tables. It was a wedding. Basically, we had a big wedding, essentially. We wanted it was an Italian wedding mentality. So we wanted as many people as possible at this Italian wedding community dinner. And so what we said is we would always say to patients that were coming, if you would like to book a whole table of 12 people, you can come and bring 11 guests if you want to, and we'll reserve the whole table. And you get a VIP seat, and those tables would all be up front near the stage. They would get first up to the buffet. There'd be definitely some perks. And it was amazing how many people just loved that and said, okay, and they would bring 11 guests to this community dinner. So what we did is we actually honored them through the dinner. We would bring them up and we'd give them a gift. It might be a pillow, or it might be some sort of maybe a bouquet of flowers, whatever that was, but acknowledge those people. And then everybody else got the idea that, hey, this is what happens when I refer others. And they would have literally a table of 11 new patients. And ultimately what would happen is those 11 new patients would end up becoming new, they become new patients in our office. But it was just such a great energy that happened. But it was all just from the concept of what happened in our staff meeting and talking about how can we make this better? How can we get it to more people?
But I'll start with the intention of thanking your patients who'd been there for a long time. It just ended up turning into be a referral event because you were going at it again, not to gain something, but to give something.
Yep. Cool stuff. Anybody else want to share challenges?
As you're thinking, I'll go through one little piece just on day 4, 5, 6 that has made the quality of referrals better, and then we'll leave it for questions because we only got about 5-10 minutes left here. Is the big thing with day 4, 5, 6. Day 4, 5, 6 should not be strictly looked at. This is when we ask for referrals. Day 4, 5, 6 is how do we make sure this patient understands all the steps they get, all the benefits they have, how they get the most out of their care, and it's this excellent experience. How do we make sure that happens? And then we have the referral conversation after. Because if it's not about them first and they feel fully taken care of, they know the path for them, they're not ready to refer others. So a big thing we've done, we've changed where it falls. So our day 4, we do reference it because we talk about it in DR, that's our close. But on our day 4, because we're doing all the advanced stuff now, it's they come in, they get, the rest of their warm-up exercises. They're going to get a show to how to get adjusted and what do you have to do if you have to reschedule and how do you set up your advanced rehab. We talk on the table like what they get, you know, who's the person they thought of, like, okay, we're gonna talk about them next day. We're making sure they're set up first. So as long as that day 4, 5, 6 is about that individual person getting the most from their care and feeling taken care of, you then set up the referral conversation versus, like, I can tell you I got more names before, but I think it was because of a pressure thing. They wanted me to like them or my team to like them. But we'd get, like, you know, 8 to 10 names from a person, and 1 or 2 would actually make it to anything. Where now we get 2 to 4 names, but like 90% of the people are coming in. They're serious about these people. The patient's encouraging them along the way. So make sure you're taking good care of the people they're taken care of before we're asking for the referral. Because if they don't feel taken care of or know the path, my feeling is they're not ready to refer. Any final questions, thoughts, where you need help or shares?
I'll just chime in. Sometimes we make bad hires. That's happened to me. So I'm looking for a full time, and you have to realize that even when you think you're doing right, you got to watch those numbers. And so we had one person threaten me to shut down the whole clinic. I fired her that day. But then just this week, the person I hired also gave me notice. So just used us for a summer job. So I am looking for a full-time person. So, you look in the mirror and go, okay, I made 2 bad hires. But also once I looked at the stats, it was very, very challenging, disheartening. I certainly shed a few tears. My conversion rate with these 2 was only 25% instead of 85 to 88%. So, God works in different ways. So made sure they were out of my life pretty quick within 1 month. But it's sure, it's hard. Sometimes you get stabbed in the heart, stabbed in the back, whatever it is, ready to bounce back, have your systems, have your friends and treat them right. And it's been amazing. The angels that have come into my life just yesterday. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can add this. I'll take over this. I'll take over this. We created many new systems to make it easier. And sometimes you got to have you have some shit in your life to improve. And I think sometimes we look at those leaders and think, well, they got it easy. They don't. The more shit you can handle, that's when you get busier. That's when you can serve more people. So what I've learned is you can't look for the easy road. It's work for us. It's work for us, and we're meant to do it. And sometimes it's really, really important to lean on those friends and be grateful for them and serve them in their tough times. And they're there, and they're their angels in your tough times. So I appreciate any prayers, because this has been a tough week for me. And if anybody knows somebody who wants a full-time job, I'm looking.
Awesome. Yeah, things happen for you, not to you.
Yeah, it's just you don't always like the lesson.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And listen, I'm gonna throw this back at you guys to say that, and I know we've been doing this a long time as far as being in this network and coaching and seen some really awesome things and gone through challenges together. But is the power of us being together in a network, and it's the power of us sharing ideas and sharing wins and sharing some of the challenges that help us to grow and help us to get better. And so I'm going to throw this back at you guys, is that I want you to start thinking about colleagues of yours who need help, who need to be in the network, and who need some assistance as far as coaching goes, and reach out and bring them in, because we have so much to give. This whole group has so much to give. And the more that you give, the more that you share, Shaylin, you nailed it. It comes back to you. There is an energy. There's a law of exchange that happens in the universe. When you put things out there, it immediately comes back to you as well. So start reaching out to people, get them involved in this network, and watch what it does to your own practice.
Yeah, I encourage the people who haven't been on a mastermind call in a while. Encourage them to jump on. For those people booking flights, should be looking at flights now for Orlando, middle of September. There is going to be there's a full team training track led by Hillary Poirier and Ryan Sousley. I think it's a full 8 hours. So there's a ton of team training there. So if you do have new team or you're looking to inspire your team, there's going to be a ton there for that. And then there's going to be a lot of business leadership from Josh Axe, Pete Sulak, Jordan Rubin's going to be there as well. So a ton of big stuff happening at this seminar. If you haven't booked your flights yet, do look into it because we're, I guess, about a month away.
All right, gang. Love you. Awesome
Yeah,
being with
we'll
you.
talk to you guys soon.
We'll see you next week.